Doing well, Jim. About yourself, man?
Cannot complain. How was your weekend?
Not too bad.
Maxine as well. That was Maxine.
She's got lots of thoughts this morning. There's
well, there was a lot that went on. So
there was a lot that went on. There's rampant violating of Maxine's rules out on Parker Avenue this morning by other dogs, cats, and various other people. So
cannot have that.
No, you can't. She's got things to say about it, so I'm going to let her out to go do that. She's going to make her voice heard, which is important. Anyway,
we may have to call the authorities. We just cannot have that.
She is the authority, frankly.
Well, you got that right. That's a good one. How was your weekend? I know that busy. It's gotten busy now. Just for the things that you enjoy to watch, but now your job is kicked in full force as well.
Sure, yeah. No, I mean, it was New York over the weekend. Well, Friday night, and then I was staying in New Jersey. Saw a lot of people from Indiana in Secaucus because it was Notre Dame Navy at the Meadowlands on Saturday. So a lot of people, a lot of Irish fans hanging out at the Secaucus, New Jersey train station. So, but yeah, got back, saw a little bit of the World Series on Saturday, and obviously caught a good bit of IU Washington in the airport on Saturday. So. Got a sense of that one. Obviously, the Pacers again on Sunday in the home opener lost that one in pretty heartbreaking fashion. Basically, rough afternoon for Tyrese Halliburton. Basically, went to the line. It was chance to tie it in overtime. He did hit a three to force overtime. Had a chance to tie it in overtime. And missed a free throw and had to miss the second one on purpose, and that didn't work out so well. But yeah, beginning the process of running around, but lots of stuff going on. Obviously, it's a super fun time of year to watch sports where you've got, the NBA started, NFL and college football, some real games, and obviously a pretty epic World Series going on here.
Yeah, it's just everything hitting at once, man, and basketball hitting with the NBA. Like I said, the Pacers already underway with their regular season. Indiana men's basketball down in Tennessee for a
charity exhibition.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it, exhibition, scrimmage, yada yada.
Yeah.
But the Pacers taking the last couple on the chin as they were traveling to New York. And kind of a big early season game, as the Knicks are one of those teams that you got to look out for now with Karl Anthony Towns and OG Anunoby. They lose that one 123-98, followed by a 118-114 loss at home to the 76ers. So 500 between those two.
Yeah, under 500, 1-2 now. Beat Detroit and lost those two. I mean, not good. Obviously, like the Philly one is particularly stinging. I mean, like you go on the road and you lose the Knicks early. You can live with that. You don't like the performance. They got just beat up, especially in the middle two quarters. Outscored 70-40. Didn't defend super well. Had a hard time moving the basket. I mean, really had a bad time shooting the ball. 3 of 30 from three is pretty brutal. But that's not all of it. I mean, they did rebound particularly well. They did defend particularly well in that one. But you think there's a good chance. Obviously, you can go back and lose in the Garden. Obviously, I mean they. You knew they were going to get a motivated Knicks team, obviously, because they just beat him Game 7 in May up there. Knicks are a different, interesting team. I think losing, they gave up a lot to get what they got. I mean, losing Dante DiVincenzo means they don't have nearly the shooting that they used to have. But, Karl Anthony Towns gives them a real center that they can rely on. And those wings are just really difficult to deal with. Michael Bridges, Josh Hart, and OG Anunoby. It just felt like anytime Halliburton in particular was trying to get downhill, getting the ball screen, it was just like the switch was like, oh, here's one more great wing defender who's like 6'6" with 6'9", 6'10" wingspan that you had to get around. It's like, okay, good luck with that, having to do that every single time. So if you lose that game, that's rough. But getting beat by Philly is killer when they don't have Paul George or Joel Embiid. I mean, this is your chance to get them. They got beat. They started out 0-2. They looked bad in both games. And Tyrese Maxey starts 2 of 13. That's the wild part. He ends up with 45. He started 2 of 13 from the floor. And I think he had 6 points at half. And so he just went off after that. And so real big missed opportunity there. I mean, obviously it's 3 of 82. So if you're a Pacers fan, you don't want to get too freaked out, but you definitely missed an opportunity, and that's one that's going to sting. I mean, again, last year there were 3 games that separated, seed 2 and seed 7, and so this is when you're going to look back, and that's one you should have had. You absolutely should have had. It's a gift. It was a gift to be able to play them without Paul George and Joel Embiid. It was a gift when you're down 2 with 5 seconds to go, and Caleb Barton forgets either that it's a 2-point game or that the Pacers are in the bonus, and Halliburton drives around him and he hugs him. Like the obvious tell of an intentional foul. And then he looks around and it's like, oh, wait, we're not. Oh, no. Oh, that's bad. And you put that guy, again, Halliburton's an 85% career free throw shooter. You put him at the line, you're thinking, well, that was just really dumb. And he misses the first one, and it's killer. If you're the Pacers, basically, to get that kind of gift and squander it is rough, because they really front loaded the schedule. Obviously, when you get good, they put you on TV more, and the Pacers are on TV more, and so they're getting a lot of front-loaded games here in October as the NBA tries to sort of like grab its piece of the marketing pie here, when it's got to fight for a lot else, again, versus football, versus the World Series, etc. Just trying to get some games on that would drive some attention, and they play a lot of good teams. I mean, that was the first night of a back-to-back there in Orlando tonight. I'm not out there, but they play a really, really good Magic team tonight, and then they come back home and they get the defending champion Celtics, and then they go on the road and they get New Orleans and Dallas, and neither one of those is an easy game. They come back and they play Orlando again. They go Charlotte on the road, and then I think they come back at home for the Knicks, and then they go back to Orlando. So they're playing. I mean, basically, I think Charlotte's the only non-playoff team that they catch in this entire period between now and like November 17th, somewhere in that range. So it's tough. It's a brutal beginning here for the Pacers. And so, I mean, again, 1-2 is 1-2. I mean, like, again, you don't want to get too overly excited about it. And I've seen them lose games they're not supposed to lose before and get it together. So, you don't want to, again, overreact. But you can't say anything that's happened so far is good. Again, it was big for them to win against Detroit, but, they didn't look dominant against Detroit either. And so really you haven't seen, even going back to preseason, you haven't seen a stretch where they've really looked like themselves yet.
No, and that's, it's early, so that's the good thing, is you can still work to find your groove. But like you said, they're playing some of these teams that are important early. Teams like the Knicks that they just played, teams like the Celtics that are coming up, the 76ers. They need to be competitive and winning some of these games, and so it's going to be setting the tone is being set right now.
Yeah, it could be rocky, and they've got to pull it together pretty fast. Again, I mean, they could really use, even if they don't win tonight, they need a performance that they can be proud of. I mean, it's going to be tough to go on the road and beat Orlando the way that they're playing. Orlando's a very tough defensive team. Orlando is basically the photo negative of the Pacers. They're super young, but they are long, they are athletic, and they are really defensive oriented. I mean, they're just an okay offensive team, but it is hard to score on them because they just have a ton of dudes. I mean, like, you got, Ben Caro and like, you run Franz Wagner is, their small forward, and he's 6'10". Basically, I mean, they've in recent years, they've run out lineups where like they're like 6'8" at the 2 guard.
Yeah. I think he froze up. So we'll make sure that Dustin stays with us, because I think he may have froze up for a second, and make sure that we get him back. Plenty more coming here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio as the Celtics are coming into town. That's on this Wednesday. Tonight, the Pacers are in Orlando, like Dustin said, and they need to get things back in order and get things going to more of a winning side. And you're not going to win every game, especially NBA. It's an 82 game schedule. But you want to start off putting the fear. Last year, they had a great start with the in-season tournament for the NBA, in which they beat them. I was talking about last year getting that great start, Dustin, the Pacers, with that in-season tournament last year. And they're kind of need to get back to that. Well, it's still early. We haven't even hit November yet. And, of course, that was in, I think, December when that takes place.
Well, yeah, I mean, the group play is in November. I mean, they've got until, I think they're in-season tournament opener. So your group play opener is not until November 15th, actually, against the Heat is their first in-season tournament game. And then they've got Milwaukee on the 22nd. I think it's all Fridays for them. Milwaukee on the 22nd, Detroit on the 29th, and then Toronto on December 3rd in Toronto. Is your group play games. And so, last year, I mean, group play was important for them too. I mean, everybody just talks about the tournament piece of it, once they got in, but I mean, they had to beat Philly, they had to beat Cleveland, in group play last year. I mean, those were a couple important wins. So on top of what they had to do, and then Atlanta, when they won that 157-152 game, that was pretty wild. They had to get a lot done in group play. So, I mean, they have some time before that, and obviously that can get you some momentum and get you started. And I think they're going to have a more difficult time this year, basically just because they're going to be everybody sees them coming, and everybody's going to see them coming for that. They got to play the Bucks in Milwaukee. And obviously the Bucks see them coming just after that playoff series last year, and that got chippy. So, it's not going to be a scenario where they're walking in and facing somebody who doesn't see them coming. Last year, I mean, one bonus that they had, one thing that was helpful for them was they played the 76ers group play. That game they had in that series was the second game, and they do these kind of like, they're almost like baseball series, where they play two games basically in 3 nights in the same city, and they played Philly in one of those, and they got beaten night 1, and they kind of adjusted to everything Philly did and beat him in night 2. And night 2 was the group play game, and so that one helped. So that was a nice little bonus for them. This time they play Miami on the first side of one of those at home, so we'll see if that helps them or hurts them. But yeah, I mean, they're good. Again, they've got time before that starts. They've got time to get right before that gets going, and that can get you some interesting momentum, especially if you get back into the knockout round and maybe win a game there and get to Vegas again. But that's a ways away, and they've just got to find a rhythm to begin with. I mean, again, like it's through 3 games, but they're like 26th in offense right now. You're not seeing them function anywhere near close to what they were last year. And like last year, they were they scored more points last year, averaged more points than any team since 1984 last year. So getting back to that form is going to take a minute.
Well, and now switching over to the Indiana Fever, a little bit of surprise with the dismissal of Christy Sides, the coach that led them to the playoffs this year for the first time since 2016. They not only that, it was all kinds of things. They set a season attendance record, which was a league attendance record. We all know about Caitlin Clark and how she pretty much led that parade, but Christy Sides is out, and it won't take, from reports, it's not going to take them long to find the replacement for Christy Sides with the Fever.
Yeah, I don't know if it's fully reported or just rumored. Obviously, the name you're hearing everywhere is Stephanie White, and so obviously that's player with an Indiana connection and whatnot. I mean, your presumption, I think, when you fire somebody like Christy Sides, who presided over this kind of turnaround this year, is the only way you're doing it is if you're swinging for the fences, and that you also have a pretty good sense that you're going to land that person. I mean, obviously, if you're the Fever, you're in a position where you have a really good sales pitch. Basically, if you're trying to get a new coach, because you're just basically like, okay, like this, Caitlin Clark's going to make you famous, basically, and you're going to have an opportunity to build an empire, more or less. This is your chance and this is your opportunity. And, that you haven't seen a lot of these in the past. I mean, like, I'm trying to think of great analogs to this. The one actually that stood out to me in the recesses of my mind, was when Rick Carlisle got let go by the Pistons, like 20 some years ago, when they went out and got Larry Brown. Brown ended up leaving that Pistons team the title in 2004. And so that's the one that really stands out to me, that's similar to this of, I don't, certainly I wasn't following the Pistons like a home fan or a reporter back then. But I just remember thinking, man, the Pistons are fine. Like, what's wrong? Why would you fire that guy? Does it make any sense to move on from Rick Carlisle. Like, he's taking them to the playoffs. They look great. What's the issue? And that was kind of a time where they just viewed Larry Brown as one of the best in the business. And he went out and, again, took, I think, one of the most, I don't even know how to say it. I mean, one of the bigger underdog stories, I think, to win an NBA, one of the bigger underdogs to win an NBA championship in the last 30 years, somewhere in that range, was that Detroit team with Billups and Hamilton and those guys. And so it's not exactly similar. Obviously it was a different league back then. It was a different style. But it really is saying you're trying to pair the best coach that you can find with the best player that you could find, and you're not really even evaluating the person who's previously there. Like, it's got just very little to do with Christy Sides. And I think she was a little, she tweeted out something about leaving it better than you found it yesterday. And she's got every right to be salty if she is. I think just considering how she was able to get that team together at the start of 1-8, it's not like Caitlin Clark walked in the door and she just rolled the ball out after that. There was a lot that she had to get done. And
Clark started the year rough, man. I remember she was having more turnovers than anything. So it was not, it was a getting together kind of thing for the entire team.
Right. Exactly. And you have to, there's a lot that has to, you could just say a lot of it is just an immensely talented player figuring it out, just getting to a higher level, having a while where you're just not sure what you're doing and then figuring it out. And yeah, I'm sure it had a lot to do with Caitlin Clark, but I mean, they defended well and they created pretty good chemistry, for all that was going on around them, for all that was all the tumult of having that kind of superstar player and everything that was going on in the Caitlin Clark discourse, which was nuts. They really played well together. I mean, there was some really sharp transition offense, some really sharp half-court offense. They got better on the defensive end. I mean, everybody sort of figured out what makes sense for their role. Kelsey Mitchell figured out a way to play within, this system and play off of Caitlin Clark. Aaliyah Boston did too. Nelissa Smith did too. Lexi Hall did too. I mean, just a lot of pieces came together for that group. And, you got to credit some of that to coaching. You absolutely do. So, again, I get it. I mean, and again, I get shooting, shooting for the stars to go get somebody like Stephanie White. But it's tough if you're Christy Sides. You absolutely don't think to yourself, man, I messed this up. And you would hope that they got that across, to her basically when they were letting her go, that hey, this isn't necessarily on you or anything you did wrong. It's just believing that, we got to really go for this here and go get somebody that's, again, had a lot of experience, basically done some winning elsewhere. She was coach of the year this past year. So, or not this past year, but in 2023. So she's obviously accomplished a lot, someone with Indiana ties. I get it if that's the direction that they go. But, again, it's just tough for someone like Christy Sides that really did a lot of good work with that team.
And she'll probably pick up a job someplace. And Stephanie White has, like Dustin said, a long history with the team, successful history with the team, having
players well
finals before. Played for him for 4 years as well. So I think it's just about bringing everything together for this team right now while the iron's hot. And I get it. Sure. So, I don't have an issue with it. We've got Dustin Dopirak with us from the Indy Star. Lots more to talk about, including Indiana basketball and football as well when we come back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios with more with Dustin Dopirak right after this break. He's a Renaissance man. He knows it all, baby, because he's covered it all in his time. And this weekend, a huge weekend on the Indiana campus, Dustin, and I know how big that is for this school, for that program, because who would have thought College Game Day at an IU football game? Yeah. Even at the beginning of this season, I think that would have been a pipe dream.
Yeah, no, I mean, you've obviously seen a couple years when they've been all right, and in recent years, and it doesn't sound, like I can't remember, obviously 2020, is not too far back that they've had at least a pretty good team, and they go into 2020 as a top 25 team. And there were times where you thought, okay, well, this is a thing that could happen maybe. But especially after the last couple years have gone. And, you know, starting out with a new coach, you know, this season, you could have never imagined it. And even, you know, a month ago, you're like, okay, well, they haven't really beat anybody yet. It's not even kind of on your radar as to when it might happen. But you started to hear rumors of it. And then when Pat McAfee came on and said, you know, hey, coach, don't mess this up. You know, game day's thinking about you. You know, we might get you. And, you know, you knew they were pretty serious because McAfee probably hears these things. And I imagine McAfee is the guy that if you want something to be a secret, he's the last person you tell. Because I think
that he had a lot to do with, in addition to Lee Corso and them celebrating the 79 Holiday Bowl championship team, getting Lee Corso for a homecoming. That was a part of it. And Pat McAfee, you know, he's a Hoosier now. He lives right up the road in Indianapolis. He loves what's going on. He loves being a part of it.
Right.
Giving basically a 3-hour to the school, to the program. It's all right. Maxine agrees, but she heard Pat McAfee. She may have gone off. I think that
she hears that name and she's got thoughts. I mean, I certainly. I mean, he's certainly taken on. You know, he's been in Indy long enough that he sees it as home and he gets to connect the dots. I mean, like me, you know, he's a Yinzer living in Indy, and so you know, like he has a soft spot for Indy and for Pittsburgh people, and he can connect both of those by taking you down to IU and going to cover Kurt Signetti, who's a Yinzer, and you know, like that's like the best of all of Pat McAfee's worlds. But to that point, I mean, you know, having this for Lee Corso had to be a big deal. I mean, can you even, if you're Lee and all the time they've been doing game day and as much of a personality has become because of game day, and you know, you finally get to go to IU and you wear your sweater and you get to, you know, have the Holiday Bowl guys there. That's a big deal. I mean, that's really connecting a lot of dots there. I thought just the photo, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet because I was basically getting on a train to the Newark airport at like 11. I saw about a good half hour of it before I got started. So I've got like the pics there, but I just saw the photo with him wearing the sweater next to Schwarber. And it's like, it's a little bit weird.
Schwarber's wearing the baseball helmet.
Yes, the baseball helmet and football pads was an interesting combination at the time, but you know, I thought it just looked cool, and you're just like, wow, like there's Lee Corso, who, you know, again, coached this team before, you know, it was really anything. And on the flip side of that, here's Kyle Schwarber, who started his college baseball career playing at a field that's not better than a lot of high school fields. You know, like, I mean, that guy was, I covered him at Sembauer, and it still kind of blows my mind that he's, you know, a major leaguer who's played in 2 World Series, won 1, has like, I don't know, 300 some odd home runs, is still hitting, you know, putting out 35, 40 bombs a year. And, you know, that guy was he was getting watched by like not even 1,000 people a day in his freshman season. You know, it's like, it's crazy to consider. Another,
boy, we've gone to the dogs.
She's really got an issue today. Anyway, but yeah, no, I mean, really a cool scene, and just really big deal for Indiana, and just all of the dots that kind of connected, all the historical dots that you know, connected there. Really cool for them, and obviously go out and win the football game. You know, is a big deal. And you're 8-0 now. I mean, like, and that's just rarefied air, you know, at all to be 8-0. Certainly to even have 8 wins is something that's not happened, you know, too often for that program. So just, again, like you said, just massive weekend, you know, for IU. Really showed out. Obviously got great weather for it. Saw nothing but good things come out of, you know, just the reaction to it and everything like that. I mean, just all of kind of the long suffering fans have, you know, really got to enjoy it, which, you know, again, that's just really good for them, just considering just how dedicated you have had to be to Indiana football to stick with it through all of this, especially if you're a longtime fan. To see that had to be, you know, really heartwarming for a lot of people.
Yeah, not only that, we are continuing to have serious discussions about the college football playoffs now for the 4 teams in the Big Ten that I have been touting for weeks now, that it's going to come from these 4 teams. Now, sure. Does the Big Ten get 4 in? I'm not sure that they do. I'll tell you what it depends on is if Indiana is not the 4th team. If it's Ohio State, they very well may get 4 teams in, just because I know how important Ohio State is to the CFP and getting those eyes and whatnot, where Indiana doesn't have that. They're going to have to earn their way in. I'm sitting here wondering, does Indiana have to go 12-0 to make the college football playoffs? Because 11-1 means they probably lose to Ohio State. So if Ohio State turns around and beats Penn State, which would put Penn State at 11-1, Ohio State at 11-1, and then you've got Oregon that's probably going to go 12-0. Those 3 teams are going to continue to get the publicity. So does Indiana have to beat Ohio State to get that, hey, we're part of this for real, so don't leave the Hoosiers out?
I mean, they might. I mean, it certainly depends on how a lot of other things go. I mean, there's still so many moving parts to this, and we're just finding out. I mean, it's really wild to consider all this, basically. Like, the first time with a 12-team playoff, first team where you really only have 4 conferences, 4 main conferences you're paying attention to, and 2 of them are gigantic. It's going to stress. I think it's going to be a very stressful deal in terms of how you evaluate this, because, like, again, we have all these years and all these models of, okay, where you had it of, all right, how are you going to get to 2 teams? Now it's okay, how are you going to get to 4 teams? All right. And you go straight from 4 to 12, which is pretty, it's pretty drastic. And then you're going to say, okay, well, we're going to put them in these giant conferences so that they don't all play each other anymore, where it's not a situation of, like, where you could kind of trust that, all right, in the Big Ten, Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State are all going to play each other every year. And so that's going to shake some things out. And in the Pac-12, Oregon and USC and everybody like that is going to play each other. And the SEC, everybody's going to play each other. And so if you end up 12-0 out of it, you're not going to have 4 11-1 teams in one league. That's not possible. And that's what you're looking at, and so it's going to be very difficult to parse this. And yeah, there is obviously a good chance Indiana gets left out. And certainly, there's it not being the brand name institution has a lot to do with that. Certainly, if that's what it comes down to. And you don't know. I mean, like you have a situation where the SEC everybody already has at least 1 loss, and you're going to, and you don't know how that's going to shake out as far as who gets in that championship game either. And so everything is pretty messy. And there's going to be a lot of people angry with whatever comes down. But, like, obviously the SEC is going to get multiple teams, but, you've got A&M, Georgia, Texas, and Tennessee got 1 loss each. LSU and Bama have 2 losses each. You presume they're out, but what do you know at this point? You don't know how they're going to weigh the Big 12, basically, and how they're going to weigh the SEC. Are they going to look at them as similar if they have the same records? Are you just going to let one team in and say, hey, this is all they deserve? Are you going to get, but like right now, it's like, BYU and Iowa State are your top 2 teams in the Big 12, and I don't think they play each other. So, I mean, it's probably going to be a Big 12 championship game where they'd have to meet up in. It's going to be just very odd trying to figure out who belongs. I mean, if you're Indiana, you got to feel like you got to have a pretty good chance. And again, if you go 11-1, if you don't make it, and you give Ohio State a run, you could say, shoot, man, that was a heck of a run. That was really something. Go out and win your bowl game, be proud of whatever comes out of it. But all the same, yeah, it is going to be tight. And especially if, I mean, I guess if you're an Indiana fan, be a Penn State fan this weekend. So that's, I promise that's not me trying to pitch my alma mater. But
why would it be better for Penn State to beat Ohio State?
2 losses. Get Ohio State 2 losses.
Yeah, but you don't want to, but Indiana then can't afford to lose to Ohio State, I don't think.
I don't know, maybe. I mean, but like, I think you've got a better chance.
Dude, it's Ohio State. They'll change.
No, I know, but
they'll change a rule. They'll make a rule change.
But you don't have a better option, I guess is my point. If your view is, I mean, like, obviously, if you're Indiana, go beat Ohio State and that solves your problem. But if you, like if you're looking for a scenario where you need somebody to lose, if you're saying, okay, like if all 4 of you are 11-1, if If Penn State loses to Ohio State loses to if Penn State loses to Ohio State, Indiana loses to Ohio State, then again, Penn State's got one loss and it's Ohio State, and they've also beat USC, Wisconsin. They've still got Washington left on the board. They beat Illinois. They beat West Virginia. Like, if Penn State loses to Ohio State and Indiana loses to Ohio State, Penn State absolutely gets the benefit of the doubt there, right? So, but if Ohio State beats Penn State, they're going to have the advantage over Penn State. Obviously they're going to have the one-on-one advantage, and you've got Oregon undefeated. So basically, if Indiana doesn't beat Ohio State and you're just going mano a mano with Penn State versus Indiana, Penn State's going to get the benefit of the doubt for having beaten, other, basically better teams. Basically, they're going to have a couple other names on that board they can point to and say that are better. Obviously, Indiana's going to get Nebraska that they can point to, and that's good, and Washington, and that's good. But I mean, Indiana, again, Penn State beating Illinois helps, beating USC helps, and being the brand name that is Penn State helps. So, I think your hope is, I think maybe your best bet if you're Indiana is Penn State and Oregon go undefeated, and you give Ohio State a game, but they have 2 losses, and you hope somebody helps you out there. And again, you don't have any benefit there. I don't know. I guess that's the thing. I think if Penn State loses, Penn State will still get the benefit of the doubt.
Well, just for I'm trying to find what is the greatest start by a coach in his tenure in Big Ten history. I know that Curt Cignetti is the only coach not from Michigan or Ohio State to do that, but he is the first coach in Division I football history to start a season 8-0 in back-to-back years at different schools. So
that's really crazy.
There's something for you. So
that's really crazy.
That's nuts.
Yeah, no, it is. It is special. Again, as I keep saying, I mean, obviously you have to change the mode by which you're evaluating, because it is different. It is not the same because you have the portal, because you have COVID years. I mean, there are advantages when you're comparing them to, comparing coaches historically. But that doesn't mean it's not still amazing. There's other coaches trying to do this in this era and not being as successful at it. So, even when you're comparing apples to apples, it's pretty spectacular. When you're doing it historically, you're not, for a lot of coaches that have taken over, it's not apples to apples. Certainly if you were comparing him to, Kevin Wilson, it wasn't at all apples to apples, considering how different his tenure was when he took over. But it's still, even with what you're looking at, to be able to put this kind of team together and again, do it, it's a big, people are like, well, they got him from James Madison, all this stuff. But think about what you're saying there. It's pretty wild that he's like, all right, a team that not too long ago was, FCS. And I think it's, was still in a transition period where they couldn't play in a bowl game. It's amazing that he brought those guys and turned them into a Big Ten powerhouse is really incredible. And again, I covered them, as kind of a secondary beat, helped out Mike Barber basically when I was there way back when. So I know the kind of players they get out there. And I know Cignetti said something about everybody at James Madison thought they should have been at UVA or Tech, and that's exactly what it is. They get a lot of guys from the Newport News, Norfolk, Virginia Beach area, and there's a ton of talent out there. And the players that UVA and Virginia Tech doesn't take generally go to James Madison, and they spend that entire career with a chip on their shoulder because that's where they thought they should have been. And so, there are, good players, and they've turned that into a really good program, but still saying, okay, it's one thing to say, okay, you can go bring that group into the ACC and win 6 or 7 games or something like that. It's a whole different ballgame to go start out in the Big Ten 8-0 and put yourself in a position where you really believe you can win the playoff and you're hanging 56 on Nebraska. It's really special what he's done.
Yeah, it's crazy, and they're not done. This is a team that could definitely go 12-0. I know that people in Columbus maybe, I don't know how much they're shrugging their shoulders anymore, especially after Ohio State played Nebraska this week, and it was a struggle. They could not run the ball on Nebraska, who had given up 0 rushing touchdowns until the week before, in which they gave up 5 to Indiana. And then Indiana turns around and shuts them down. So I think that even Ohio State fans, they may not acknowledge it completely, but they are going to take this game extraordinarily seriously, as probably as serious as the game against Michigan.
No, I mean, like Michigan's Michigan, it's different, because just the rivalry and whatnot. But yeah, if you're Ohio State, I mean, as the team, if you're Ryan Day, I mean, I'm sure their fan base is like, that's Indiana, who cares? I mean, if you're Ryan Day and you're watching Indiana on film, you're like, oh boy, okay, yeah, that's real. I mean, like, again, they're just pushing people around. I mean, it's remarkable. It just doesn't look like any Indiana football team I've ever seen. I mean, just the degree to which they're winning up front, the weapons they have on offense, and the fact that they can, again, they're stopping you on defense too. Like if you're Ryan Day, you're like, all right, just imagine they're not wearing Indiana on their jerseys. Imagine they're wearing anybody else's helmets. How good does this team look to you guys?
Oh, they're ranked in the top 5 right now.
Yeah. It's like they look pretty good to me. So I think you fellas better take this seriously.
But if everybody knows that, and everyone seems to not only know that but acknowledge that, why is that not happening?
I don't think it's not.
Well, I mean, they didn't even move up this week in the AP poll, which there are, and I know that's dependent sometimes about what happens in front of you, but there are just too many teams that have a loss to me. And I'm going to go directly to Notre Dame, who lost at home to Northern Illinois, who this weekend lost to the vaunted program of the Ball State Cardinals. So, I mean, I'm sorry, there's nothing that makes up for losing at home to Northern Illinois.
No, I mean, I get it. I mean, I was thinking you meant teams and coaches taking it seriously.
Oh, yeah, no.
I don't. I mean, like I said, I've done the AP poll before, and like I said, like, you don't get to watch a lot of football. It's very weird. I understand it. Like, I know this. People are like, this is nuts. This is so like, but like, again, like, they get media to do this. And if you cover college football, you mostly watch one game. You watch whatever game it is that you are paid to watch and write about. And then you write like the Dickens, and you shoot video, and you talk on video, and you take all day, and you got to drive from wherever you are, and the whole bit. Like, your job is the team that you cover, and you spend all day covering that team. And then at the end of the night, when you're fried, by whatever work you had to do all day, you put together the poll because it's due. And, and you're just trying to not get mocked tomorrow morning. That's what you're going for. You're just trying to survive it and not catch hell. So, like, that's the motivation of everybody who's in it, is just try to not catch hell from anybody. And I mean, yeah. So, like, I look at this and say, okay, does Indiana, from my aspect, and again, it matters that that's where I am. That's the team I did cover, when I was covering college football last, and it's such a shock to me that they are not just 8-0, but they're just running through people, that I'm like, all right, like, I feel like I've seen everybody else in this team struggle, but I'm not spending all day covering one team on Saturday anymore. Like right now, I mean, like the first 5 Saturdays of the month, I mean, like, I had other stuff to do that wasn't, covering the Pacers, but like, I get to watch more football just playing around, because I'm not at a stadium, chasing everybody down. So I get it, why this stuff takes a while to take. And, again, you're looking at the brand names that are ahead of them. Like you're looking at, you're saying, all right, well, Tennessee lost, one game they weren't supposed to lose. Alabama lost, or they're ahead of Alabama, but, Georgia lost to Alabama. Ohio State lost to Oregon. That's not a crusher. All right, well, Notre Dame, that was just a, that was just a fluke, whatever. But yeah, I mean, like, when the playoff standings come out, and they come out on election day, like, if Notre Dame's ahead of Indiana will be really, really surprised. You know, I'll presuming, of course, that Indiana wins this week, and I do presume they'll win this week and, you know, beat they got Michigan State. I don't think they'll have any problem up there. So, you know, like I presume Indiana will be ahead of them on the playoff rankings. I mean, just I have a hard time imagining that if, like, when your job is to watch all the games, it's different than when your job is to watch one game. You know, it's just different. And that's, again, there's a reason why they stopped using the AP poll for everything. It's for entertainment. It is for entertainment. Exactly. It is to, and like, it's to set things up. It's to say, okay, well, this is the #1 team in the country, and this is why you should watch this game and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's a media deal, but it has to, you have to take into account the motivations of the media involved. And like, what you have to remember is this, the AP poll is not anybody's job. The AP poll is an ancillary thing that you do on top of your job. And when it comes to, again, basketball is different because you get to watch basketball all week. There's basketball games all week. You cover the couple games that you cover, but there's a whole other week worth of basketball games that you can watch. I mean, again, when I had an AP vote as a basketball writer, I felt like I learned way more about college basketball because it gave me a reason to watch every night. You know, just like, okay, well, I got to watch this game. I got to watch that game. And so I did have a pretty good sense of how good everybody really was, because it was like, all right, like, you had the opportunity. It was just, everything in football is on Saturday. And so it's just like, there's just logistically not enough time between when you get done covering your game and when the poll is due to watch everybody. It's not possible, you know, and in college basketball, you can watch everybody. In college football, you can't. So that changes the dynamic pretty dramatically.
Absolutely. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star and Maxine right on cue, baby. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. Look forward to talking to you both again next week.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jim.
Thank you, sir. Dustin